Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fantasy Table brought to you by the Blue Stable. I'm once again your host, Luke Burkamp, and today we are back together. Me and Theo are both here at the same time. It only took like a few weeks, but here we are. We're once again here. So Theo, how you doing?
Good. Finals week is approaching, but today was my last day of class. So happy, excited. Excited to get back into it. It's playoff time, which makes me excited. I mean, I think in more leagues than none, I missed the playoffs, sadly. But in the leagues in which I did make the playoffs, I have a pretty solid team. And I feel like it's like championship contender team. So it's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me quite a bit that like over half my teams I have Jalen Hurts in, so
Oh yeah.
that really has helped me get to the playoffs in a few of those. But yeah, anyway, like Theo said, the playoffs are here. Perfect time for us to be back together to talk more about fantasy football. So what we're going to do is go through the news and notes as always, but then we're going to talk about some playoff stuff. Like I'm going to be talking about some playoff stashes that you can look forward to next week, and Theo's also going to be talking about some teams that are fighting for playoff spots that will be playing extra hard and trying to get those playoff spots. So their players hopefully get more fantasy points. But starting off with the news, the Falcons are moving on to starting Desmond Ritter. Marcus Mariota went to injured reserve. I know the Ritter news came before the Mariota news, so I don't know if they're necessarily connected or not, but either way, it's a good time for the Falcons to see what they have in that rookie quarterback, see if he's their future or if they should be looking towards the draft pick to maybe replace him and be their new starter for next year. But I do want to mention one thing with this is I want to keep my eye out on Drake London. I know he's been up and down this whole season, but new quarterback, no Kyle Pitts. I think that there's an opportunity for him to be a very good flex option for the rest of the year if he connects well with Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing Ritter's play. Looking back at his college stats, you can see early on he was used quite a bit as a rusher, but then as every year went by, closing into his senior year, he was I mean, he got I think it was over 300 rushing yards his last year at Cincinnati, but if Arthur Smith decides to unlock that game in him, I can see a nice floor in him. I don't know if it's going to be as explosive as seeing Jalen Hurts in his rookie season when he came to play as the starting quarterback for the Eagles. I think that was after Gardner Minshew was decided to sit the bench. Um, Hurts exploded at the right time in the playoffs. He carried a lot of teams to championship, including one of mine in one of my bigger money leagues. So I don't know if Ritter's gonna have that same impact, but there is a chance, and I'm excited to see that there is a chance at a league winning quarterback coming into play. But I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm just saying there is a chance.
I gotta say, I don't know if I'd necessarily be going out to like pick him up right now. Like it's tough because like yes, I want to because of the potential, but at the same time, I just don't know if I can trust that enough. Like, I mean, if you have like Geno Smith, like I'd still be sticking with like Geno Smith and that.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I thought Deshaun Watson was going to be like the league winning quarterback this year, but he hasn't really looked good so far. And well, yes, he hasn't played football in a long time, so it's kind of the rust kicking off. Um, I don't know if it's going to fix by the end of the playoffs. And this is the first week of the playoffs. If you lose, you're out. Like, so it makes me worried to be starting like Deshaun Watson, which I guess I'd still be worried if I'm starting a rookie quarterback, like a mid round rookie quarterback as well. But I mean, yeah, it's just a lot of unknowns, really.
Question. So let's say you have Lamar Jackson. He's most likely not going to be playing,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at the waiver wire, and you have like Tyler Huntley or Desmond Ritter. Who are you going with?
That's pretty tough, actually. Gosh. I feel like I would go with the offense and go with Huntley there. I just feel like that's going to be a better offense to bet on, especially because they play Cleveland's defense, which hasn't been great this year, especially like rushing. And Huntley can still run, not as not like Lamar Jackson, obviously, but
Yeah.
he still gives you a floor. And speaking of the Ravens, J.K. Dobbins is back from the injured reserve. He had a really good game this past week, and now he plays a bad Cleveland Browns run defense. So he's back, and I feel like he's a solid running back too for the rest of the year.
I agree. I mean, that 120 rushing yards and I believe he got a touchdown too.
Mhm.
I mean, I did not expect J.K. Dobbins to explode like this
First
coming
game
back off of
back,
it.
like
First game back off of injury, going off like this. This is completely the opposite of what I said. I was like, if he returns from IR, he's just shown not to be the same person coming off an injury break. And this one just, I don't know if this is an outlier. That's what I'm scared of. And I think that might just be me denying J.K. Dobbins' resurgence. But this, I mean, I'd still start him. I'd still
yeah,
play him. But he could put a, I mean, I don't know. I'm very interested to see how he plays against the Browns run defense. Because he should put up, theoretically, he should put up another performance like he did last week.
yeah, it should be solid, but really with Dobbins, we don't know. Um, been very up and down this year. I know I just looked at his stats. Like the first week he came back this year off of his first injury, he put up like 5 points. And then the next week he went off for 2 touchdowns and was the running back 10 on that week. And then after that, he was like back to like 5 points, 5 points. And then he got injured again. So it's like, you really don't know. But I mean, that is a good rushing team. Lamar's not there right now. So they're going to lean on him even more than what they did before. So I'm still like, if you have him, I'd start him. Like I sat him last week because I was not expecting like that type of performance, and
Mhm.
he gave us that. So of course, it's every time whenever he's sitting on the bench that he likes to do that. Russell Wilson got a concussion. He is in the concussion protocol. I have heard no news on whether he's good or not to start this week. Um, Seems like now with concussions in the NFL, they usually like the next week for you to be off. So I'm going to bet that probably you won't see him this week, but potentially next week. Not that I don't think many people are starting Russell Wilson, but
Yeah, no.
in the fantasy playoffs, if you
Not,
have him,
not in the playoffs for
you
sure.
have yeah. If you have him, I don't know, but I mean for Jerry Judy, I guess, and stuff like that. Cortland Sutton, even though Cortland Sutton has his own injury right now. Debo Samuel got hurt this past week. Big scare. Everybody thought he was going to be out for the year, like a torn ACL or something. He is expected to be out for a few. They say around 3. So if that means less or more, we don't know. Do we think that he's a good drop candidate? I want to hear your thoughts first here, Theo.
I'll say this, if you're anything less than a 3 seed and you are tight on trying to get as much possible points in your starting lineup, I would risk dropping him because at this point you're 4 or lower, and you're most likely facing a team that's equal to or greater than yours. So it's like it's one and done here. I mean, you
So,
kind
like,
of have if you're really squeezing it, you kind of have to.
yeah, um, I gotta say this is mainly for people who don't have IR spots. Obviously, if there's an IR spot, you put them there. But
Mm-hmm.
like, say like I don't know, Elijah Moore's out there. Would you pick up Elijah Moore here against Detroit?
See,
Or do
that's
you,
to put as many.
like if you need a wide receiver this week, kind of deal? Like if you like you have other bench players, but Elijah Moore might be a better option.
Yeah, like if your bench is filled with backup running backs and other wide receivers that aren't necessarily as good as what Elijah Moore would be, I'd say, yeah. I mean, all those conditions have to come into play. You have to be like
Right,
lower than
right.
a 3 seed. Yeah, but I would take Elijah Moore over Debo Samuel in a must-win
With the
game for sure.
yeah, with the risk. Yeah, I
Hmm.
feel like mainly with the risk reward, I don't think you'll be getting much reward because even if he does come back for championship week, are you starting Debo Samuel fresh off an injury that they said it was going to be around 3 weeks and that would be week three? Like to me, it's a little scary. I would be worried if my championship hinged on Debo. Um,
Hmm.
but I get he's a very good talent. Like he's one of those guys that you can't really sit him, like DeAndre Swift. Even though DeAndre Swift's been up and down, I know Debo's had his up and down games this year. I just feel like in the playoffs, like one and done type things, I would be willing to drop him if there's a decent candidate out there that you need like a spot start here or there, or a guy that you can stash for later type of things. Carson Wentz got activated off the injured reserve, but he may still be the backup to Taylor Heineke. To me, this is the right thing for them to do because Heineke has been the better quarterback this year by far. Unfortunate to us as Colts fans because we wanted that playing time to get in there, but I definitely see why the Commanders are doing this.
Yeah, honestly, even if I was to like channel my inner Colts fan, I'm not even too bothered by it anymore. It's just the
It's just
draft
been
pick
paid,
I'm worried about is the first round
the
draft pick
first round
now.
pick.
At this point, Carson Wentz long gone. To me, the draft pick that they gave up for him, it's lost as well. It doesn't matter. What matters is what we do with that first round pick. So
Yeah,
Taylor Heineke, though, is the better option for the offense, of course. Terry McLaurin, he's still going to put up those numbers as always. I like him. This is a smart choice by Ron Rivera.
yeah, I agree. Kyler Murray tore his ACL. Very unfortunate injury that was right there at the beginning of the game for the Cardinals. Both Kyler and Rondale Moore got put on the injured reserve. Cardinals also signed David Blau off the Vikings practice squad. I don't think this is going to do anything fantasy wise, but he is now their, I guess, backup quarterback.
I mean, David Blau is not going to do anything for fantasy wise, but Colt McCoy starting. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown, their stocks all fell.
Yeah.
Huge fall for them. And
James
that
Conner, though.
James Conner, even at so like when if you watch that game, James Conner got involved a ton on the offense. It felt like, at least for me, and especially in
It
key
seemed like every
moments.
other play almost. Like
Yeah.
that's what it felt like anyway. I know obviously
It
it wasn't, but
At first it definitely did. Um in key moments too, in crucial plays where they needed the first down, they weren't afraid to get him involved in running a route or actually physically handing him the ball. It it's a plus for James Conner. Colt McCoy is the perfect play what's around him in close proximity, and James Conner is right there. So I like him for the rest of the season. DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown, Colt McCoy doesn't have that arm available to get it to
no.
Marquise Brown deep. That what makes Marquise Brown so good. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, he could play anywhere. He could catch the ball deep. He can catch the ball short. He could do whatever. He's got the skill and talent for that. Marquise Brown, to me, he might be a benchable candidate now for the playoffs. If you definitely have if you're doing like a sit or start, he might be a sit this week.
Well, since we already brought him up, how about like Elijah Moore this week, Detroit or Hollywood?
Oh,
Hollywood plays Denver, which has been pretty good against wide receivers.
yeah. Hmm.
That's it's tough. Um,
You know what? I'd play Marquise Brown. I'd play Marquise Brown
get the
because
volume, maybe.
he's the better player.
Hmm.
To me, he's the better player. It's extremely close now, but he's the better player, so I'd still play him.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, I have Hollywood and Elijah Moore in one of my leagues, and I'm currently have Hollywood in the lineup over him.
Okay.
But it is close. It's tough. I go back and
It
forth
makes
almost
you
every
think
day.
for sure.
Yeah, because you see that matchup, it's so like good.
I
You're like,
I
man,
love how we're using Elijah Moore as the benchmark.
yeah, he's
He's
just
just the
that.
benchmark guy this
Yeah,
week.
yeah. Ramondre Stevenson also left the game early, unsure if he'll miss any time or how much he will. Um, I have a league mate in one of my leagues that just needed like 10 points from Kyler and Ramondre, and then they both
Oh
left
no.
like early. And he missed the playoffs because of those two injuries. Like, very unfortunate. Like, that's fantasy football, though. I mean, you really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was kind of like in my league, but this time it was for the Kyler Murray injury. Um, it was the toilet bowl game. So somehow
Oh,
perfect matchup. The second to last place and the last place both shared the same record, bottom of the league, faced each other off in the final game. And one team, like, it was the last game Monday night, and they had Arizona's defense and Kyler Murray on one team, and the other team had DeAndre Hopkins. And the team with DeAndre Hopkins ended up winning. So
wow.
yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
It's
Um,
unfortunate with these players leaving early. I mean,
yeah,
hopefully this injury bug doesn't continue into the playoffs. It's
right. Yeah. It's been rough past few weeks, especially. I mean, like, what are you supposed to do whenever someone goes out early in a game? Like, also, like T. Higgins, like, I don't know what happened, but apparently he did something in warmups where he got hurt and he played like one snap and ended up with
oh
zero.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like no word on that. Like, you had no idea. And some people probably missed the playoffs just because of that. It
And later
sucks.
I'll point out the teams which will most likely not pull their players out if
Yeah.
they have a little bug.
Um, it's not OBJ that's going to the Cowboys as their new wide receiver, but instead Colts legend T.Y. Hilton signed with the Cowboys for the rest of the year. Decent incentives too, like it was up to 1.5 million for the rest of the year. I know Theo did the little tier. I
Mhm.
decided to bring out the jersey. It is signed. You can't really tell from the camera because it's probably blurry. But yeah, I got to meet him a few years ago, so that was awesome. But yeah, unfortunate rip to the Colts legend. Wish we could have brought him back just to get him to the 10,000 at least, but I understand the business move as well.
Too sad for me to comment.
I mean, how do you think he's going to do the rest of the year? Really? Like, do you think he'll outscore like Michael Gallup the rest of the year?
I don't know. I think Michael Gallup still. I think no. I think he'll probably average like 1.5 catch per game. I think he's most likely going to be there for a veteran presence and to control the depth of the Cowboys wide receiver core. So in case CeeDee Lamb does fall, I mean, you have T.Y. Hilton to jump right in there. And I think
Yeah.
that's a smart choice.
Yeah, those guys are like their offense has been very good recently. So it's playoff push. They're doing what they can to make that playoff push. Like the Bills also brought back Cole Beasley. I know I forgot to write this in here, but yeah, Cole Beasley is now back on the Bills. Another team high in the playoffs that are making that push, getting more players. Um,
Yeah. OBJ he demands 5, 6 targets a game. T.Y. Hilton is not
yeah,
going to demand that. And I think the quality of players you have on the wide receiver core are more deserving to get those targets than an OBJ. So
yeah. I
that's
think what
my opinion.
Yeah, what really like hurt OBJ on signing somewhere this year is he was like, "Yeah, I just want to play in the playoffs." Which I know Zach Kiefer commented on that, but he said that seems very entitled because all these players right now are playing their like butts off to get to the playoffs,
Hmm.
and OBJ is just going to walk in and play during the playoffs, and that's it, and get all these targets all of a sudden. So I get why. And also, the Cowboys apparently commented that they don't think his ACL is recovered enough for him to play in the regular season. So it's just a risk for teams to be signing Odell right now. I'm guessing Odell's probably wanting a bigger contract. So yeah, it's
Karma's gonna hit him. I'm
yeah,
calling it. If he does sign with the playoff team, that playoff team's not gonna win a game in the playoff. They're just not.
yeah,
I can
probably.
sense it.
But
All right,
it
but
seems,
I'll
I
keep
guess,
my.
go ahead.
No, you continue.
I gotta say, it seems like I know I saw a notification earlier today or something like that, but they said that Odell probably won't play until next season. So, or they don't think like a team will sign him till next season type thing. So we'll see if that happens or not. Though.
That's probably for the better. And what I was
Yeah.
gonna say was I'm gonna start limiting my comments because I feel like we're dragging this beginning part out a little bit too long.
um. Well, you're going to have to comment on this one because you called this one. Cooper Cup is
That's
unlikely to play
true.
again this year.
Yep, I called it. It just the Rams season was over. Like I said, I got the J.K. Dobbins thing wrong, but 50-50 chance. I got this Cooper Cup take right. It wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth keeping him on your roster. Um, yeah, you could have dropped him when you could. Rams were just not going to be the team to do anything. So why even try to play Cooper Cup through an injury?
Yeah, they really have nothing to play for. And honestly, I know I talked about this on a podcast either last week or something like that. But I really don't know what the Rams are going to do in the future because they got like no draft picks. There's all these rumors about Matthew Stafford potentially retiring because of this issue that he has in his back. If he
Same with
retires,
McVay.
I gotta say, if he retires, McVay's going to retire. If McVay retires, Aaron Donald's going to retire. They're going to be losing all these players. Like, what's Jalen Ramsey going to do? Is Jalen Ramsey going to stay there, or is he going to retire? Like, and that's an honest question. Like, if I'm Ramsey and I look around and everybody's gone, do I need to play more? Like, I got a championship, I got my money. Like, I don't know, but either way, their future is. I mean, they made it worth it because they did win a championship, but
Hmm.
their future does not look great. Um, few designated to return from injured reserves. The Eagles have designated Dallas Goddard, and the Raiders have designated Hunter Renfro and Darren Waller. I don't know really how much impact this will have on the rest of the year, but Goddard is definitely an interesting one to me because if he comes back, um, he's somebody that I'd be willing to play over like a Waller or a Renfro.
I I want to comment on this. The Eagles had such a great, terrific, perfect first week of playoff matchup against the Chicago Bears. They are
Yeah,
there's a good chance they just absolutely torch them, fantasy points galore, and it's going to be everyone involved. I mean, Dallas Goddard, PFF has the matchup of him against the Bears linebackers as one of the best tight end matchups is going into this week. Bears run defense is not good. Miles Sanders could go off. And of course, the Bears pass defense is below average. And you can just see A.J. Brown cooking them. It's going to be a field day for that Eagles offense. So if you're any which way invested in that team, hopefully you are. It's going to be a bountiful game for you in the playoffs.
yeah. I didn't really think about it till like you started like naming off all these players, but the Eagles were heavily undervalued in fantasy drafts this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're probably the best like fantasy offense this year, or up there at least. And like if you look like from quarterback, running back, tight end, wide receiver, and they were all like down draft boards compared to the rest of like NFL. So, but yeah, it's going to be a fun day for the Eagles. So, would you start Goddard coming off the injury, or would you start and try to chase points with Evan Ingram?
Hmm. Goddard.
I guess say Ingram kind of has a rough matchup this week too, so
Yeah, Ingram's production was phenomenal last week. It's just the fact that Goddard has been more stable in his position, and the fact that there's going to be a ton of volume to go around in that Eagles offense against the Bears. So just knowing that for a fact, I have to go Goddard.
yeah, and plus, I mean, that's going to be the best game of Evan Ingram's career, most likely. I mean, if that was like a more normal type thing, like he wouldn't be on the Jaguars right now. He'd still be on the Giants.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also, Kenneth Walker is likely to return this week. Now, this one's tough to me because he really wasn't great whenever, like, before the injury there. Like, his yards per carry was atrocious. He was being carried by his touchdown, but now he's coming back off an injury on a Thursday night. Like, do you trust him enough to start him this week? And plus, it's not a
It's
great
against
matchup.
it's the 49ers run defense, which is the
Mm-hmm.
best in the NFL. Um, I'll stick to this philosophy. You play your best players, you play your star players that got you there. I understand the circumstances of his injury and the opponent matchup, but I like I don't
Like, would
know.
you play Walker or J.K. Dobbins?
A lot of people are gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna play Walker.
Wow. I was
I'm
going to go
I'm
down the list. I had other running backs planned, but I guess I don't even need to bother. You're
no
starting
no
Walker that high
I
up.
in the playoffs I'm going Walker, because he's just that talent. You play with talent. You play with the players you know have talent. Kenneth Walker has proven to have that talent. But it's like not as consistent as J.K. Dobbins. It's just
I get the argument for like start your studs and stuff like that, but at the same
But
time, whenever
Walker's the injuries and the opponent.
yeah, like at the same time, you also have to play matchups. Like it
Hmm.
can't just solely rely on the talent wise because like Hollywood Brown, he's a great talent, but if I have a better option than him because of a matchup, I'll play the matchup. Like I don't know, that's just me though. I mean, because I don't want to be solely relying on being set with a certain lineup just because,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this guy was good for a few weeks before the playoffs, then I'm going to play him now.
Yeah,
But
I'm not necessarily like set in stone, play your most talented guys. It's just more of like a guidance thing, right? Where
mhm.
it's like if you are second guessing something, just play the guy that has the more talent.
Yeah,
That's my philosophy.
I gotta
In
say,
regular season, there's a lot more factors that go
mhm.
into that guidance principle. But in the playoffs, for me, it's all right. If I'm like 60-40, 50-50, whatnot, play the talented guy.
Yeah. So like for me, like I feel like Kenneth Walker and J.K. Dobbins, like talent wise, are not really like that close, but they're similar to me at least for like this
Hmm.
year because Kenneth is a rookie, J.K. is more of a veteran. So I'm playing the matchup. I'd go J.K. Dobbins there. So like, would you start like one of the Chiefs running backs, like Pacheco or McKinnon, over Walker, or both?
Neither. Oh,
Because I feel like hands down, I'd be playing both over Walker.
really?
Yeah,
I could see your case for McKinnon. Even though he had that one explosive play, I can't see the case for Pacheco. I'd take Walker over Pacheco every
they
time.
play Houston. worst run defense in the league,
Yeah.
which is why they're also the best against quarterbacks because nobody passes on them.
To save us time, um, odds so damn close. Now that I know like one's playing like the worst and one's playing the best, um,
That's the main reason why I brought them up because I'm like if you're like that set on like Kenneth Walker, because I
yeah,
do agree
because
he's really good. He's got the touchdown upside.
and
Um,
Dobbins was coming off an injury too. I mean, like he didn't
mhm,
look like it last week, but I mean, he's still like he's not going to be 100%, right?
right.
But, um, I changed my answer. I would go Walker over McKinnon, and I'd go Pacheco over Walker.
Oh, so you're switching those two. Okay,
Yeah, because
interesting.
now they know that because I don't really like McKinnon's like running, like just pure rushing
Hmm.
ability. Pacheco is so much better in that case. And if the Chiefs end up going up, they're going to go more towards Pacheco
Checo,
and running out the clock.
right.
Those garbage time points are going to be helpful. So,
Um, so the last thing, news and notes, real quick. I did not know this happened until literally just like an hour ago. But Eno Benjamin got waived by the Texans, and he is now claimed by the Saints. And honestly, this is kind of something to keep your eye on because Mark Ingram's out the rest of the year. They have David Johnson, I believe, yet. And I mean, he's at this point of his career, nothing.
weird.
um, but Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's kind of been injured all year. And if he does suffer like a major injury, or if they just decide to, hey, let's just shut you down the rest of the year, Eno Benjamin would be the guy, and he would be getting quite a big workload. And we've already seen what he does with the full workload already this season. So he's definitely got to keep your eye on. I don't know if I would necessarily like stash him right now, but yeah.
What this year taught me is that I am not touching the Saints backfield with a 10-foot pole next year in the draft. I'm not.
it's
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 Kamara.
ugly.
Okay, you can hype up Kamara as much as you want at the value that he's going in the third or fourth round. Yeah, you can. No, I'll pass. There's definitely a good enough wide receiver in the third or fourth round that could explode. So I'd pass on Kamara, pass on whoever they bring in the draft, whether it be Bijan Robinson, Tank Bigsby. I don't know. Who knows? I'm not touching that Saints backfield.
um, so this is great news, but bye weeks there are none. We are finally
Yeah.
done. We're finally done with the bye weeks.
After the last week, jeez.
Yeah, that was bad. Like last week, like could you imagine like you're in a win or out of the playoffs scenario and like a
Yeah,
bunch of
that
your players are on bye? Like
that's what I'm saying. Like,
that's
okay, I know the NFL isn't thinking about fantasy football
right,
24/7,
right.
but like, why the hell are you gonna put like 8 teams on bye week? And they're
Like
like
I say, there's
solid
just
teams.
yeah, it was just kind of like a coincidence almost that there's just so many teams and it also happened to be so late in the season that it was just kind of like a double whammy for those people who had those players,
It was
unfortunately.
really a testament for depth, I'd
Yeah,
say.
yes, that is very true.
If you really hit those waiver wires hard every week, you would have been fine in week 14. But
Hopefully.
if you were slacking, probably didn't do you so well.
Yeah, probably heard quite a bit. Before we move on to our next segment, let me tell you a little bit more about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy platform where it's just you versus the projections. You can pick more or less on many player projections that they have on any sport you watch. This includes like receiving yards, passing yards, rushing yards on like wide receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs, respectively. All you have to do is pick between 2 to 5 players, and you can win up to 10 times your entry. And that's not all. If you are a new sign on, you can receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 by using code Blue Stable. So if you deposit $10, they'll give you $10, which makes it $20. If you deposit $50, they'll also give you $50, making it $100. And if you do $100 to the max, they'll also give you $100, giving you $200. Download Prize Picks today and play daily fantasy sports with us. Make sure to use code BLUESTABLE, BLUESTABLE, when you sign up. The link is down in the description below if you want to download today. So I'm going to talk about real quick the stash for next week candidates. These are players that I am looking to, if you have an open roster spot, just holding them on the end of your bench, and next week you'll be able to play them. I'm mainly going to be talking about like very low end roster players, but I'm also going to bring up like a defense and a tight end because those are two of the most things that people stream from week to week. So I kind of want to talk about those. The Broncos defense is the first one that I want to mention. They're 28% owned. They have been a solid defense all year. I know the offense has not been good at all, but their defense has been very solid. They play the Cardinals this week, so they're actually a pretty good play this week, but they play the Rams next week. So it's like if you have them like as a free agent right now, I'd go pick them up. You could probably play them this week unless you have a better option. And then you could also probably play him next week. Next up, I have Elijah Moore. I know we've talked about him quite a bit this show. Elijah Moore, he's 38% owned. Like we said, he plays Detroit this week. He could be a solid flex option this week, but if you don't trust him, I totally understand that because I don't think we totally trust him either. But he also has another, it's not as good as Detroit, but it's also another soft matchup against the Jaguars next week. So if he does, like he led the Jets in targets last week with 10, if he has another good game this week, potentially you might want to start him next week against the Jaguars. And then the final one that I want to talk about is Buccaneers rookie tight end Cade Otton. He is only 13% owned, and he plays the Cardinals next week, who give up the most points to tight ends. It feels like every single week the Cardinals give up like a touchdown to whoever's starting tight end that they're playing that week. So definitely a guy that if you're in desperate need of tight end help, like say you're starting some low end tight end that you really don't want to start, this could be a guy that you would be able to start next week. And then the last thing I want to mention is backup running backs. This is the time where you definitely want to be holding on. I know I saw earlier on Twitter that someone was saying to drop Kareem Hunt. And to me, I wouldn't. Just because if Nick Chubb gets hurt tomorrow in practice and is out for the rest of the year, Kareem Hunt's going to be number one. Everybody's spending the rest of their fab money. Everybody's spending their waiver priorities on Kareem Hunt because he will be that guy for the rest of the year. He will be a league winner. So go ahead, get ahead of your league mates. Grab the backup to like Eckler, CMC, Henry, Chubb, all those guys now while you can before it's too late.
And also take note on which player, which running backs are questionable
Yes.
are listed on the injury report. I know James Conner was limping a little bit during the game against the Patriots, and whenever he was out, Keontae Ingram came in. I know Keontae Ingram didn't look as good as James Conner did, but they don't really have another option behind Ingram. It's going to be his role to jump into. That's sort of like Derrick Henry and Dontrell Hilliard. Even though Dontrell Hilliard saw some action when Henry was completely healthy, he's going to jump in and just take around 80% of the snaps if he jumps in. So I agree on getting those backup stashes.
Like I'm just looking through now, Najee Harris mispracticed on Wednesday, so Jalen Warren, keep an eye out.
Warren. Yep. I also want to know another tip for the playoffs. I saw this on the NFL fantasy account. I don't know how true it is for ESPN leagues, Yahoo leagues, or Sleeper, but I guess we'll test it out this week. But they said that if you have a bye week in the first week of the playoffs, to put all of your starters on the bench. And this allows, because let's say the games begin, once you have a player in your starting lineup and their game begins, they're locked into that and you can't drop them. But if they're on your bench, apparently you can drop them
I
while
know
the game
Sleeper
is going.
does, yeah.
Okay. So that is a huge plus to be the first one to go and grab some backup that you weren't lucky enough to guess on grabbing before. That's an interesting strategy, and I'm not first seed in any of my leagues, so or have a bye week in any of my leagues. But if I were, I would try that strategy. I mean, that doesn't hurt. I mean, you're not scoring points against anyone. So just to be first, already have a good enough record to have a bye week and getting ahead of your teammates, automatic win in my book, even in a bye week.
Yeah, no, that's actually a great point. I didn't see that. I didn't think of that, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense whenever you bring that up.
Trying to spread the good word here.
We're trying to give everybody the tips that we see.
Yes. And another tip I have is look for teams that are competitive or pushing for the playoffs or pushing for a better seed. Um, some teams that are pushing for the first seed in their conference are the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. Now, I say this like competitive teams and watch out for them because if a player does get a little banged up near the end of the season, they're most likely going to ask them to play through it. And even if you're someone like Tyreek Hill, who's getting his ankle taped up while the defense is out there and going back out, it's not like that's what he's doing. He's playing, he's being competitive. He's trying to win those games for his team and get the better seed and secure a spot in the playoffs. And especially for those star players battling through injury, you see Cooper Kupp, he's injured, but his team is not competitive for the playoffs, so they're going to decide to sit him out. Teams are going to do whatever it takes to put their best player on the field, no matter what, to win games, no matter their injury cause. I mean, of course, if it's more severe, they're going to keep him off. But for teams that for players that don't really have too much of a troubling injury, they're going to be amped up with adrenaline. They're going to be competitive. They might even want to be out there themselves. They want to win as much as the team wants to win. So, Chiefs, Bills, Eagles, Cowboys are some of the teams that are fighting for a first seed that you might see as competitive and players playing through injury. And I have a set of wild card teams as well that are fighting for the 6th and 7th seed. Those are the Chargers, Patriots, Jets, Commanders, Giants, Seahawks, Lions, and Packers. The NFC teams are a little bit worse than than their AFC counterparts, but they'll still be equally as competitive. Um, which is why I think the Seahawks will play. I know that earlier we said that Kenneth Walker is likely to play against the 49ers. Based on this logic, I think Kenneth Walker is going to play against the 49ers. I think it's safe to assume that just because of the position that they're in. So take those teams into account when you are evaluating injuries. Um, Maybe take that into account when you're thinking about backups. Who knows? But do with that information as you will.
Yeah, no, this is a really good tip because like we said with Cooper Kupp, like there's no reason to play him anymore. There's no reason to play Matt Stafford, Allen Robinson, all those guys on the Rams. So like if Jonathan Taylor would to suffer an injury, most likely we wouldn't see him again this year. That's actually one of the reasons why, like I know Josh Jacobs had like a injury this past week. Like, will he play? Just I know they're still kind of in the hunt as well. but they're going to have a harder way to get in. But it's one of those things like you just don't really know unless they're really fighting for a spot on if someone's going to want to play or not. But yeah, it's definitely a good tip. Um, like we said, with some players like Kenneth Walker having a bad ankle, it's kind of tough to like automatically play them, but you have a better chance of them playing and sticking through it than you would if they were out completely.
Like I'm looking at it right now. 49ers are the 3 seed in the NFC. Their week 15 matchup is the Seahawks. If the 49ers, who are 9-4, beat the Seahawks, who are 7-6, Seahawks fall to 7-7, 49ers move up to 10-4, and they pretty much secure the 3 seed at that point, with the Buccaneers in the NFC South, a very weak division. They'll most likely have the worst record in the playoffs as a 4 seed, whoever ends up winning that spot. But that kind of solidifies Deebo Samuel and them being more relaxed on him. They might not ask him to play for the rest of the regular season because they don't need him. They're at the 3 seed. No matter how many times they win, no matter how many times they lose, they're still going to be stuck at that 3 seed spot. So that's a player, for example, that you may have to watch out for on a non-competitive team.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he's definitely one that makes a lot of sense for them wanting to get as healthy as he can before the playoff push. I don't really see there being much of a point in him playing like week 17 if that's the only week that he does play. Whenever like all the seating's pretty much finalized by that point. But yeah, it's definitely a good thing to keep your eye on. But anyway, that is our big playoff tips that we have for this week. Obviously, next week we're going to talk some more about playoff football, more news and notes, and go on from there. But either way, thank you guys all for watching. We appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Theo, you got anything else for everybody?
Yeah, please stay watching even if you lose next week.
Yeah, please. I mean, honestly, if you plan to keep on playing fantasy football past this year, it's still good to get this knowledge from the end of the season stuff. Because like last year, end of the season playoffs, Amon-Ra St. Brown went off, and he's still really good this year. This is a time of year where you see like these league winners that continue on into the next season happen. And these are the kind of like the guys that really produce here at the end of the season are some of the guys that if they're later on in the drafts next year, they're those guys that you want to target type deal. So it's not a waste of time if you're out of the playoffs. If you're not in the playoffs or if you lose in the playoffs, like there's still reason to know more about what's going on in fantasy football and in the NFL.
I actually might go back to this show during the summertime when I'm thinking about my fantasy rankings for next year
Yeah.
because I sometimes need a refresher on why a player didn't do so well last season, and we provide as much context as possible in which every player news story we got for you. So yeah, these are very useful. I encourage you guys to keep watching. We'll drop some tidbits here and there, some tips. Keep down and note to yourself for next year. And yeah,
Draft Travis Kelsey #1 overall. That's my
yes,
note for
Travis
next week.
Kelsey #1 overall.
But yeah, anyway, guys, that will be it for us today. So hope you have a good day, good evening, good night, whenever you're watching this, and we'll see you next week.